The dossier's been with us publicly for almost a year now. What we report today is that actually it wasn't the basis for the FBI investigation. There were several things that were involved, but primarily it was information from George Papadopoulos.
All the evidence suggests that he was working with Western intelligence. He's going to me and acting like a Russian intermediary and talking about Russian emails. And then the FBI uses that against me when I had nothing to do with Russia, just to frame me and to try and put Donald Trump's presidency in danger.
All right, folks. Today we're going to talk about narratives. Specifically, the narrative that started the Russia-Trump conspiracy theory, and I'm not talking about Carter Page.
A bombshell report in the New York Times revealing yet another piece of intelligence that the FBI had when they began to investigate possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Now, at the center of today's report, this man, George Papadopoulos. Now, according to the New York Times, Papadopoulos was apparently drinking with a top Australian diplomat back in May of 2016. And he told that diplomat that Russia had political dirt on Hillary Clinton. I know some Republicans, you've been reporting as well, as the president claimed the Steele dossier is the basis for the FBI's probe into Russia's election meddling and the question of collusion with the Trump campaign. But according to this explosive report from you and your colleagues today, that's not true.
Barr has been unapologetic about investigating the origins of the special counsel's witch hunt. This has sent the Democrats into a desperate spiral. They are attempting to use Barr's handling of the report to discredit Barr. This, in turn, is obviously meant to discredit anything Barr does. But they are uncomfortable, and you can tell. Barr just has to say one word to send them into a tizzy.
I am going to be reviewing both the genesis and the conduct of intelligence activities directed at the Trump campaign during 2016.
And can you share with us why you feel a need to do that?
Well, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during an election, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't. I guess you could. I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me.
But the question.
When you hear them tell it, Papadopoulos was meeting with a Russian agent who passed on secret intel. This is when they tell it. What does it sound like when Papadopoulos himself tells it? All credit to Flecka Talks for the interview.
I was working at a company called the London Center for International Law Practice. Now, this place is very, very important because this organization is part of how this setup first started. This is an organization in central London that I was a director at that's filled with a lot of Western diplomats and ex-Western intelligence types.
Now, I tried to confirm anything about the London Center. Other than their website being down, I was able to find out that there is at least one former employee unhappy with their salary scales.
So I tell them, you know what, I'm kind of bored here in London. I don't really want to be a director anymore. I have this new position. I'm going to be joining the Trump campaign. And they were horrified. And it was at that moment that I was taken by one of the directors to meet another director who was called Arvinder Sambe. She tells me, oh, it's bad that you're joining the Trump campaign, but if you're going to leave us, we have some people in Rome that could help you regarding whatever you're trying to do with Trump and Russia and other governments. And I say, that's great, This is a director at a company I worked for. I didn't know that she was working with FBI, which she was. I go to Rome at this university called Link Campus. And David Ignatius has written extensively about this place. It's a spy school, but it's not a Russian spy school. It's a CIA, FBI spy school in Rome, and that's where I meet Joseph Mifsud. And Joseph Mifsud is the guy at the epicenter of this entire Russia story, this Russia hoax, that told me eventually that the Russians had Hillary Clinton's emails.
Indeed, both sides agree on this point. It was Mifsud who first met with Papadopoulos. But again, when they tell it, Musfet is a Russian asset. Papadopoulos, though, was introduced to him by an associate at a London-based think tank that allegedly has ties to Western intelligence. Now, that is a hell of a different story, isn't it? Unfortunately for the left, Musfet's connection to UK intelligence isn't exactly secret. So the story was that Papadopoulos was approached by a Russian agent because he was introduced to a British asset. Now, why would a British asset pass on information about Hillary's emails? Well, it only gets better.
A week after I meet this guy in Rome, I'm in my office in London at this London Center for International Law Practice, and they're like, you have to go meet Mifsud again. I'm like, why do I have to meet Joseph Mifsud? He's like, because he's going to introduce you to the niece of Vladimir Putin. And I'm like, I just met him, and now he's introducing me to the niece of Vladimir Putin? This is like amazing.
Yeah.
And the company itself, which I explained is run by like the MI6 and FBI, is telling me go meet him and her. So this guy was acting like he could make things happen. And I meet this young lady. She's not speaking English. She's like not smart. She's just like kind of like sitting there. And I'm like, okay. A week after that, I get emails from Mifsud and this person. And she's acting like she's an intermediary between Putin and myself and others, right? And I'm just like emailing her, and I'm like, are you the same person I met in London? Because you don't sound like the same person. And later, as Bob Mueller just explained in his report, Mifsud was like fabricating emails that were being sent by this person to make it seem like she was somebody she's not.
Everyone may remember this meeting being used to tie the campaign to Russia and the Kremlin. Again, unfortunately for the left, it is now confirmed that the niece was actually an FBI asset. So instead of Putin attempting to contact the Trump campaign, the story was actually that he was, again, instructed to meet with Musfet, and Musfet brought along an FBI agent posing as Putin's niece. And then Musfet, a UK asset, used the meeting as a way to fake a connection between Trump and the Kremlin. Certainly, no former or current FBI or CIA employees should be worried about having been part of any of this. We have been assured by Democrats that this has all been above board.
And on May 6th, I get an email from Erica Thompson, that same girl. And she's like this, oh, can you meet with my boss, Alexander Downer, on May 10th? I'm like, okay. And I want to explain what happened in this meeting with Alexander Downer on May 10th that apparently sparked this investigation, or was some part of the predicate that resulted in this investigation. I'm sitting down with Alexander Downer, just like you and I are, like basically this far apart. Right away, he pulls his phone out like this, and he holds it up to me like this, and I feel right away he's spying on me, or he's recording me. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Like this, not even surreptitiously, like this overt.
Kind of sneak it out and ask some questions.
He was this overt about it.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
My imagination's running wild, I said. Because there's no way an ambassador of an allied government would be spying on an American in London, would he?
Yeah, that would be quite the story, wouldn't it? Now remember, this is where he shared the information he totally got from a Russian asset, not a British one, to an Australian diplomat, not a foreign spy, who definitely didn't know to fish for the planted information when he set up the meeting.
Fast forward to my interviews with Mueller and the FBI. 7 months before this bizarre New York Times story came out about me and him drinking or whatever, I tell Mueller and Andrew Goldstein, who was one of the top prosecutors involved in my case, guys, I don't know what this guy Downer is or what he was up to, but I think he was spying on me or recording my conversation. And Andrew Goldstein, okay, himself tells me, how did you know he was recording your conversation? And I was shocked. Like, he's telling me that Alexander Downer was spying on you. And what do I do to Andrew Goldstein? Exactly what I just did to you. I said, this is what he was doing. He was pulling his phone out and doing this. You could hear a needle drop in the room. I said it in front of Goldstein, Zelensky, another prosecutor of Mueller who was involved in my case, and the 2 FBI agents and my lawyers. And it was as if I said something that should have never been, 1, known about, and 2, repeated.
Well, that is awkward. Wonder what it must feel like when someone blows up your whole GayOp without even realizing it. The expression on the faces in that room must have been priceless. So now, if this all doesn't stink to high heaven already, there's a little more shenanigans from Western intelligence, or rather from unaffiliated Cambridge academic.
That just goes to show you the extent that the British were keeping tabs on me. All the meetings I was having with them coincided when, one, there was an operation by Stefan Halper against me in London in September, and in October when there were FISA warrants issued. So unless like Stefan Halper was like some rogue guy on an operation in London against me and the British had no idea, I find that absurd.
Now, Halper is someone Roger Stone and others have been railing against for quite a while now, and of course, like everything in this story, InfoWars is closer to the truth than any mainstream publication.
They infiltrated Donald Trump's presidential campaign to plant faux evidence of Russian collusion. Steph Halper told George Papadopoulos and Carter Page he was a close friend of Paul Manafort's. Paul Manafort says calling him a friend would be a stretch. I may have met him once 40 years ago when we were both working for Gerald Ford. It was at that episecond that I knew Steph Halper was the mole.
Halper indeed was a Western intelligence asset at the time of his interaction with Papadopoulos, a FBI one. And if you need any more evidence that this whole story was one deep GayOp designed to create a premise to spy on Donald Trump's campaign, they have the receipts.
I'm testifying to Congress in October of 2018 in front of Mark Meadows and John Ratcliffe. And I said the only thing I remember was Alexander Downer and Stefan Halper playing with their phones, and I think they were recording me. So I said this under oath, okay? So I remember Mark Meadows and the members of Congress nodding, basically telling me, without telling me, and this is in the transcript, that the U.S. government is in possession of transcripts with you, Joseph Mifsud, okay? This is like a bombshell, what I'm saying right now. Alexander Downer and Stefan Halper.
Congress has access to the transcripts of the conversation these people recorded. How can anyone argue these people were not assets of Western intelligence? All of them, from Musford to Downer. All right, Democrats, you're right. Carter Page is unimportant. He wasn't the start of all this anyway. Papadopoulos was, right? Papadopoulos, who was set up to meet Musford, a man tied to British intelligence, cast as an agent of Russia, who then passed on intelligence about Clinton's emails, cast as secret intelligence from Russia, who then set up a meeting with an FBI agent, cast hilariously as Putin's niece, in a heavy-handed attempt to falsify close ties between the Trump campaign and Putin himself. Then Downer, a high-ranking Australian diplomat with Clinton ties, arranges a meeting with Papadopoulos. At that meeting, Papadopoulos supposedly offers information about Clinton's emails. The truth? Downer set up the meeting to record Papadopoulos saying something that could hurt him and questioned him to that end. As a result, Papadopoulos gives information fed to him by Western intelligence to Western intelligence, which then is used as grounds to spy on a presidential candidate's campaign. I gotta give them credit. Nixon didn't try nearly as hard as this, and this is much more than abusing FISA warrants. This required multiple people over multiple months coordinating to feed and receive information from one unwitting stooge, all to create a completely opposite reality. So yeah, let's talk about Papadopoulos instead of Page, and let's talk about what really happened. We are the Republic's walls. Come and take it.
This was a PSYOP. That was designed for one reason and one reason only, and that was to attempt a coup against the president. An attempt to subvert the duly elected president and the institutions in this country, which we believe in and we hope protect us, meaning the rule of law, freedom of the press, and a free judicial system, were undermined by the previous administration to overthrow our current president.